Okay. All right now.
What's up, everybody? Fit Friday here with Cole Speilman here at the Boyertown YMCA. Going to be talking a little bit about your hip flexor. So what is the hip flexor? Your hip flexor is your muscle right here in the inner hip, and what it does is it allows you to raise that knee, raise that leg up towards the body. So a lot of people have hip issues. So the main thing is, let's find out the cause of why your hips are bothering you. Is it a flexibility issue or is it a strengthening issue? So I'm going to give you a couple tests here and some exercises how you can help those hip flexors out. The first one I want you to try here is to see if your hip flexor is tight. So we're going to lay on the stretching table here. You're going to bring the back to the back. All right, now I'm going to test out my left side here. So I'm going to bring my opposite foot up into my glute. All right, you want the knee and foot to be hanging off the bench here. So lifting the head, keeping the lower back, making contact with the table. I want you to straighten out that left leg. Okay, now this is going to tell you a lot right here. If your hamstring is off the pad, even just slightly, that's telling me that your hip flexor is a little bit tight here, okay? If you can bring your leg all the way down, that's telling me that your hip flexor is pretty flexible, okay? You got some good mobility in there. So see where you're at. See how far that hamstring is off the ground. The further you are up, the tighter that hip flexor might be. Now, to stretch this out, basically in this same position, your hamstring's just slightly off the table. What we're gonna do is use that free hand. You're gonna push down on your quad, relaxing the head here, pressing down, feeling that all the way down the inner hip, okay? Pushing down here as much as you can, okay? Hold it for about 10-15 seconds, and then release, okay? Do about 3 sets of those, all right? Second stretch here that I'm gonna show you. We're gonna pop up onto this table. I'm sure you've seen people doing this. I'm sure you've seen runners doing this here. It's a lunge stretch. So bringing the left knee directly under that hip, right foot's out here, 90 degrees. What I want us to do, keep in a neutral spine. So sitting up nice and tall here. I don't want us leaning back. We're gonna be nice and tall, keeping that core tight. We're gonna lean forward, pressing this front knee forward, feeling that all the way down the hip flexor, right in here. All right, now you're gonna feel this stretch. I'm shaking a little bit, I can feel this. All right, you can do this one a little bit longer, 15 to 30 seconds, and do about 3 sets of these here. All right, and that's how you stretch out the hip flexor. So test it out, see where you're at, and then try those stretches. Now we're gonna show you how to strengthen those hip flexors out. All right, so now let's see if that hip flexor is strong. So we're gonna use just any sort of, you can use a chair, I'm using the box here. You're just gonna put your foot on it, okay? You want it high enough so that the knee is slightly over the hip here, okay? Now, how to test this? You're gonna bring the hands to the head. Now, if you have a balancing issue, you can grab a chair, put the chair next to you, and hold on one hand to that chair as well. But if you can go both hands behind the head, all you're gonna do is try to raise that knee up as high as you can, okay? Just like that. Now, if you can do that, what that's telling me is your hip flexor is pretty strong. Now, when you do this, try to hold this as long as you can, okay? You're gonna start to feel it burning a little bit in there, and you're working it. You're strengthening that hip flexor out. If you're having a hard time doing this, just do taps. So where you lift up and come right back down until you can hold it for a little bit longer. Now, if your hip flexor is really weak and you can't get that foot off the box at all, just bring the heel up to start, okay? But really focus on where you're contracting that muscle. You wanna be contracting from the hip and not doing a calf raise here, because you can kind of put that just into the calf. So you're really trying to lift from the hip, pull that heel up by keeping the toe on that box. If you can get it all up, go for both. Go for that whole foot. All right, work on that either way, if your hips are strong, keep working on that exercise. It's only going to benefit you in the long run. If you didn't, take a look back at last week's video. Do those exercises as well. The hip abduction, hip adduction is all going to help that area. Anything you can do to strengthen the area around, so glutes, hamstrings, quads, things like leg press, squat, it's all going to help those hip issues, and it's all going to strengthen you up in the long run. So keep working on it. Make sure you leave your thumbs up below and leave your comments. Let me know what you thought, and let me know what you want to see for next week's video. See you next week.
Oh, you know.